I've got the most interesting job, I think, to talk to you about. The content of my presentation today is based on the most common questions that we usually get, both from property owners and from bodies corporate. So hopefully I'll be able to answer some of the questions that you have yourselves. And obviously one of the most important questions is what's covered and what's not covered by the body corporate's insurance policy. So the body corporate's insurance policy, or the strata policy, is the insurance term for the type of policy, covers the structure of the building, inclusive of its fixtures and fittings for both an individual lot and common property. So fixtures and fittings include everything that's fixed, like kitchen cupboards, bathroom cabinets, shower screens, anything that can't be taken away, pretty much in layman's terms. And it further includes underground services on the block, which forms part of the strata plan, inclusive of fencing, subject to the location, that is, whether it's a dividing fence or a shared fence. So the biggest part of the policy is covering the building, and a list of inclusions under the building policy as follows. Up there. So you've got things like baths, hand basins, shower screens, toilet sinks, stoves, ducted air conditioners if they service more than one lot, as David touched on before, antennas, built-in cupboards, doors, windows, fixed tiling, paintwork, wallpapering, public light fittings within common areas, they're also part of the building. Individual circumstance can play a role. The policy may respond differently to individual items being claimed, dependent on the cause of the damage. For example, the policy will not respond to a leaking or faulty hot water system, which is subsequently deemed as a maintenance item. However, if the hot water system has been damaged from impact or an event that's covered by the policy, then you can claim that under insurance. Common contents is included under the policy. That's contents that are located in a common area, so obviously not the owner's or the tenant's contents. Things like carpets that are in hallways, but carpets within the confines of the lot are not covered. That comes under the owner's landlord's insurance or their contents insurance. It will cover things like mirrors and other decorations within common areas. Somebody's corporate will have lawn mowing equipment that they keep in a shed, that's common contents. Anything that belongs to the body corporate and is used for the common area, for the use of all lot owners, that will be common contents and will be covered by the policy. Barbecue equipment, lullabout lounges around the pool, all of that is common contents and is included under the policy. Now you've also got provision for improvements under the policy, and that can vary between $250,000 and $300,000 depending on who the insurer is, and that covers improvements to an individual lot. So it's an automatic built-in part of the policy, so that if you're not told about it, then you've got that buffer there for improvements to individual lots. For example, if a lot has renovated their kitchen, replaced the bench tops with marble, this will be included within the policy under the lot owner's fixtures and improvement section. But it's always recommended that that lot owner advises the committee, who in turn will advise us of any improvements that have been done. The insurers need to be notified of that. A lot of the time it won't make any difference, but if there's been major renovations to a place, that can affect the insurance. So we always need to keep those lot improvements on record in case it's needed by the insurer. Now, it also can include things on the outside, such as a patio cover. A lawyer might put a patio cover, but for that to be included, it must be attached to the building. So if they put up a garden shed, which is freestanding, not covered by the body corporate policy. It must be attached to the building and come under the definition of building as per the insurance policy. Things that aren't covered. Common contents. The strata policy does not cover carpets, curtains, blinds, light fittings, personal equipment, valuables, furniture, household appliances, anything that's owned by the owner or the lot owner and is within the confines of their lot. So they should source appropriate contents insurance or landlord's policies to cover those sorts of things. Building and maintenance isn't covered. David's touched on that a bit in his talk. And additionally, the insurer will not cover repairs required due to faulty workmanship, building movement, rust, oxidation, corrosion, wear and tear and deterioration, not covered by the insurance policy. The claim being put forward to the insurer must be an insurable event, such as a storm, damage, water leaks, impact damage, malicious damage and so forth. So you have an insurance policy that covers certain events. The occurrence has to be one of those events before it's going to be covered by the policy. So maintenance is not one of those events. Also be aware that the policy inclusions and exclusions may differ from individual insurers' product disclosure statements or their policy wordings, and ultimately the decision is determined by the insurer, not by Capital, not by the owner, not by you. The insurer makes the decision as to whether something's covered or not. Okay, one of the next common questions is about the excess. Who pays what and when? Body Corporate and Community Management Act dictates who pays an insurance excess depending on what event has occurred. So we aren't making that decision, it's legislation that determines that. If the event's affecting 2 or more lots, or 1 or more lots and common property, the body corporate's liable to pay the excess, unless the body corporate decides that it's reasonable for the excess to be paid by the owner of a particular lot, or should be shared between owners, etc., etc. So once again, it's case-by-case basis, and it will depend on what happened and what the event was as to who can pay the excess. And as David touched on, it's also subject to the plan of the scheme, whether it's building format plan or standard format plan, because varying legislations are in place in terms of lot owners and maintenance responsibilities for those. For example, if the scheme is a standard format plan and lack of maintenance to the roof has caused internal damage to a lot, the lot owner is responsible for the excess, as the maintenance of the roof is the owner's responsibility. Same case example, but as a building format plan, the body corporate would be liable for the excess, as the maintenance of the roof is their responsibility. So you can see that it is important to know what type of building it is, because that will determine who pays the excess. Now further, if a lot's caused water damage to a lot below by way of an overflowing bath or a washing machine, hoses on dishwashers, they're really common occurrences, the owner which caused the damage to the lot below is liable to pay the excess, not the owner who's had their property damaged. So they're at fault, it didn't happen. It was as a result of something that occurred in that unit above, so that owner will pay the excess on that. So you can see that there's varying circumstances that apply to the payment of the excess, and it will be a case-by-case basis, subject to who was at fault, what incident occurred to, and where, when, and the type of building plan. So moving on to a property manager's role during a claim, we're going to touch on, you'll probably know, the most common claims. I'd say 90% of claims that I get are water damage. So that's the most common, and with water damage claims, there's always 2 parts to that claim. There is the cause and there's the resultant damage. The cause is the reason that the water ingress occurred. For example, a burst pipe, a crack in a roof tile, and it must be rectified before the insurer will authorise the resultant damage. Gaining access through walls or ceilings is still part of the cause. You can't say, well, we only had to go through the wall because the pipe burst, so it's resultant. It's all part of the cause and is not claimable under the body corporate's insurance policy. Cause generally is not covered. The only exception is if tiles were blown off the roof by a storm. The storm is the event that's covered by the policy, so in that case, that cause will be covered. But if it's due to a maintenance item, a cracked tile, leaves backing up in gutters and that sort of thing, then the cause is not covered by the policy. Now, your resultant damage is the damage that's caused by the water that escaped from the bursting pipe or through the cracked tile, damaging ceilings, walls, skirting boards, cupboards. This can be claimed under the body corporate's insurance policy. So some common misconceptions or beliefs: that the costs incurred gaining access to the problem is covered by the policy, not covered, or considered part of the cause. Contents items can be claimed under the policy because the cause originated from a building problem. We often get tenants or owners trying to claim damage to their contents just because the pipe burst, so you should be responsible for paying for my contents. Not going to happen. The body corporate's policy is a building policy. The only contents it covers are common contents. That's for use of all lot owners. Anything within the lot is the owner's responsibility, and that's why they need to have their own contents insurance or landlord's insurance. They need to claim those sorts of things regardless of the cause or where it originated from. They have to claim that under their contents policy. It would be like trying to claim for damage to your boat under your house policy. It's not going to happen. Boats aren't covered under house policies. Contents aren't covered under building policies. So they're responsible to make a claim on that for themselves. Another common thing is the cause is a building problem, so the body corporate will pay the costs. As David explained earlier, it just depends on the building format plan as to who's responsible for it. You'll often get contractors out there who go out and they give a quote and they say to the owner, oh no, this is the wall, no, that's body corporate. You know, that they don't always know what they're talking about because they don't know the legislation, etc. So it needs to be checked with us before you can rightly say who's going to pay for what. So what's your role in all of this? Well, you may be required to complete a claim form. Capital's claim forms are really simple, basic information required. It just gives us the information that we need to be able to lodge the claim on behalf of the owner. So you might need to fill that out for us. You might need to arrange rectification of the cause, so get someone out to have a look at the roof or a plumber to look at that pipe that's burst and get that fixed. You might need to obtain the quotes for the resultant damage on behalf of the owner, to get the painters and plasterers in, anyone else who needs to quote on repairing that resultant damage. You may need to then lodge all of that with Capital. We need your claim form. We need the cause invoice because the insurer won't authorise any other work until they can see that the problem is fixed, which makes sense. You know, they're not going to fix the ceiling and plastering for all the water to leak in the next storm and have to do it all over again. So they need evidence by way of an invoice to show that that rectification has been done. It doesn't matter if sometime down the track it happens again. You just go through the process again. You don't think, oh, well, that happened before. They'll still look at it in the same way. The only time they'll start bucking up about it is if it continually happens. They're going to say, well, look, you need to get this rectification, sorted out. Your previous action's not working. Something needs to be done so that this doesn't happen again. You might also need to arrange access for loss adjusters or contractors, because you guys have keys to your clients' units. So we will often give your name as the contact person so that they can arrange to go on site and have a look. And just assist us with supplying any information that the insurers might request that you'll be able to help us out with. So that's probably your role in the claim process, and your role is very similar to mine. You want to manage the claim on behalf of your owners, and you want to get it done as quickly as possible. And that's exactly what I do as well, between yourselves and the insurer, or the owners and the insurer. Now, another part of claims, big item, is loss of rent. Sometimes owners or tenants have to move out whilst the repair work is being done because it's not feasible for them to live there, or the damage may make the unit untenable or unlivable. So loss of rent can be a part of a claim. So we would need you then to provide rental ledgers up to the date that the unit was unable to be tenanted, provide rental ledgers for the period that no rent's been received or a reduction in rent has occurred, because maybe just a bedroom was unable to be used, so the rent's been reduced due to that. Loss of rent will be paid for the period when the contractor starts repairs to the date the repairs are complete, or from the date that someone couldn't live in there, like if there was major damage and people had to move out straight away because it was dangerous or water was coming through the ceiling, from that date through to when the repairs are complete. Now, if loss of rent is due to the necessity of drying out carpets, so everyone had to move out, they brought in big industrial dryers to dry out carpets and things like that. Carpets within the lot are contents, so that is your owner's responsibility to claim under their contents insurance. Now, the other big thing that becomes a problem is the expectations of the owner and how quickly these things are going to happen. We need to manage those expectations and maybe even your own expectations of how quickly things will happen. Let me tell you, claims do not happen quickly. So as soon as you can adjust to that thought and prepare your owner for that, if it happens sooner than expected, then that'll be a bonus. But claims just don't happen quickly. They're not going to be settled within a week. You're not going to get a loss adjuster out today, the day you've lodged the claim. The loss adjuster comes out today, you're not going to get an answer tomorrow. They're handling hundreds of claims. I personally handle 120 plus claims at any one time. So imagine how many claims a loss adjuster and insurance companies are handling. And they've got families who have been dislodged from their homes, temporary accommodation. The fact that your owner is losing some rent for a week or two, it isn't going to be a high priority for them. And it doesn't matter how many times we tell the insurer, oh, look, this person's losing rent. They've got their priorities and they've got a lot of claims to handle. So we need to prepare the owners that things will take a little bit of time, especially when a loss adjuster does get involved. They come in, they need access, they assess it, they have to do a report. That could take a week. It goes to the insurer, then they've got to get to it because they've got 100 other ones to look at. Could be a week until they look at the report, then they look at it, look at the recommendation, and so it goes on. So adjust the expectation that it's all going to get done overnight, because it won't happen. So we just need to try and make it a bit more realistic to the owner. Obviously your job and my job is to try and move things along quickly, and we do try and do that. We follow up claims on a weekly basis. At least we know repairs are being done and they're going to take a couple of weeks, then we're not going to be following it up every week then. But ordinarily, if we haven't heard anything, we have a weekly follow-up for all of our claims. So everyone can only do so much in a day, and I know you know that as well. Now, the last thing that we're going to talk about is we often get asked the question, does my tenant owner need landlords insurance? You've got a body corporate policy in place, why do they need to have an insurance policy? Well, the simple answer to that is that the body corporate's policy looks after the interests of the body corporate, not of an individual owner. So yes, there's public liability cover on the body corporate's policy, but that doesn't cover the negligence of your owner as an individual. So they do need their own policy in place. So they need a public liability cover to cover their own negligence, because if the body corporate, say there were tiles that had lifted inside the unit and the owner has done nothing about it and your tenant trips over them and injures themselves, the body corporate's not at fault for that, the owner is. So they need to have some public liability in place to cover their negligence. And also the items that we covered earlier that aren't covered as contents, so things like blinds, curtains, air conditioning systems, carpets. They need minimal, 5, 10, 15, 20,000 to cover their contents items. And then there's policies out there that have additional options like tenant rent default, malicious damage by tenants. Only landlords policies have those options available for them. So that's about the end of my presentation. So if anyone's got any questions on